Okay, YouTubers, space detectives and armchair astronauts. Today we're looking at the Zhurong 1 rover on Mars, the Chinese rover, and the Tianwen-1 lander, which I've got here in this image. This was taken by NASA, by the MRO satellite, which is basically the one with the massive camera on it, which is called the HiRISE camera. And it zoomed in to this area, which is at Utopia Planitia. And we've got here a nice close-up image from space of, there's the Tianwen-1, that's the lander there, and the Zhurong rover just here. And you can also see down here, which I've marked, the heat shield, or what they call the back shield, okay? Just here. This smaller object is the back shield. If I show you that with the magnifier, just there. And this apparently is part of the descent stage, like the parachute or something. I'm not sure exactly. We can see this from the ground as well. Now, this is really cool. I'll show you this up close as well. I've got this magnifier here, which is really good. If you haven't got this magnifier, check it out. It's called SUPERZOOM Magnifier. You can get this for pretty much any browser. Here is the lander. This is Tianwen-1, which is the platform, which is on kind of like on the stand. And here is the rover, just down here. And you can see how reflective they are. And this is the blast radius here. You can see that this dark patch here is where the ground is hollowed out. The rockets have blown the sort of dirt away from the ground. And this is the dust plume here on the ground. Okay? Very similar plume to others we've seen on previous missions recently as well. So that's all kosher. So you can check this out. Now, there are some other things in this image which I'm going to show you in a minute, because I don't think it's just landed here to find signs of water like they claim they have. I think there's something else going on here. We know that there's permafrost just under the ground in a lot of these areas, so there's plenty of water on Mars. It's just a matter of drilling it and then melting it and then refining it or purifying it. It's not really a problem. And especially if we were to land nearer some of the melt zones, there'd be plenty of water, not only underground, but at the right time of year on the ground as well. Now, this is the page I got this from here. This is the HiRISE page from NASA. And we've got this version of it here. This is the browner version. There's different versions of this image. You can get it in infrared and blue. You can get it in RGB. I recommend merged RGB. This is the one I'm showing you. That's the best one because it's not too big, but it's in good detail and the colours are pretty natural. Some of these other ones, the colours are a bit off. I've also got this here. Now, this is really cool. It's not in very high resolution, but this is a panoramic that's they put together of the images on the ground taken by the rover, and you can actually zoom in and zoom round. You can do a full panoramic here. This is the landing zone, the LZ, from the Zhurong rover. You can actually see the rover down here if you look. If I zoom out a bit, you can actually, it works in reverse, so it's a bit weird to get your head around this. It's actually better to use the arrows on your keyboard if you've got arrows there, because otherwise you tend to end up instinctively going the wrong way, which is exactly what I'm doing now. There we are. Right, okay, there's the rover, and here's the background. And this is the heat shield, just here. Now, you can't zoom in very far. Let's go back round this way. You can't zoom in very far. This is why you need the magnifier, because the magnifier will actually help you see it. That's the actual back shield or heat shield, and part of the descent stage chute here, just here, which when you look at it on the MRO image is shaped like a sort of UFO. It's really cool, actually. This thing here, it's like a little spaceship. Very cool, very reflective. Look at the shape of that. Absolutely insane, right? And there's the heat shield there with a shadow next to it. Okay, and you can measure all these things on here. This isn't particularly large, obviously. It's not as big as the recent Mars rovers from NASA, so it's quite small. There's also this article here, which is quite good. This is from the New Scientist. China's Zhurong Mars rover took a group selfie with its lander. Now, I'm going to show you this image now. Now, this is weird, this image. And this was what they did, is they had a remote camera on the ground taking a photograph of the Zhurong and the Tianwen-1 here. That's Tianwen there, the platform that came down on. And the back shield would have been on top of this. If you were a Martian looking at it, you'd probably think that it's a UFO landing. And a strange robot coming out, which looks very strange, this thing. Now, these images aren't very good quality, but I've got that one here. And this is the best one I could find. If I find a better one, I'll put it in at the end of the video and show some clips and close-ups. But this is the best one I could find so far, which isn't too bad. But when you zoom in, now I've already cleaned this up. It's got no real detail at all. It's very blocky. There's lots of compression lines in it. In fact, I've already enhanced it slightly with a bit of blur to get rid of that distortion. You can see all this distortion in here. It's a low quality image. So this was probably only taken at 1.5 or 2 megapixels, and it's probably been processed once or twice at least. When they put these logos on here, I expect they got the raw image, they put the logos on and then saved it as a fairly low quality JPEG. This is the mistake that all these people seem to make. I don't know why they use JPEGs in the first place. And every time these get processed, they get downgraded and downgraded. And obviously they may go through 2 or 3 people before they go up on their website or are released to the press, and by which time they've been downgraded 2 or 3 times or compressed, badly compressed. But I don't think it was very high res to start with, this one. You can actually see that the detail is pretty fuzzy, but it's a weird image, this, really weird. And you've got the Tianwen here, with you can just about make out the flag here, and the rocks on the ground are not in very good detail, and you can see the distortion in the image. When you zoom in, you get all this blocky distortion. That's JPEG distortion. We get this with the Mars images from NASA as well. But now with the new Perseverance rover, we get a lot of the images in slightly better quality than we did before. Not all of them, but some of them are quite good. A lot better than this, anyway. So there we are. There's no real detail in the rock here, even though this was taken from on the ground by a little miniature camera, remote camera. Even the closest rock here has got no real detail in it, which is very strange. So that the actual I don't know what the resolution of this remote camera is. I'm guessing it's less than 2 megapixels. But like I said, these have probably been downgraded at least a couple of times as they were processed and had the logos attached and then put on their site and sent to the press as a press release. So not great quality, but interesting. Got a funny little face. That's the mass cam. The nav cams are under here. You can see the nav cams there. And this has got a whole bunch of ground penetrating radar scanners as well. It's got 3, I think. So if you want to find out more about this, I'll put some info in the description below with the links and everything. And I'll link to this article. It's quite a good article, actually. This picture isn't that good on here. There are larger versions of it. If you just look up Zhurong, China Zhurong, and then Google it and press images, a load will come up. And some will come up about sort of 1920 by 1080p in size, so that's not too bad. So China has released its first batch of science images from the Zhurong Mars rover following its successful landing on the red planet on the 14th of May. So it's been up there a while now, nearly a month already. And I did a couple of videos about it back then when it landed. We didn't have many images. There's also this sort of panoramic here, okay? But I can't seem to find the full-size version of this panoramic anywhere. And I've been on their website, and their website is a bit weird. And last time I went on it, a few weeks back, I ended up with a nasty Trojan and had loads of computer problems after that. So I don't really recommend that. But I'll put a link to it anyway, okay? So there we are. There's a whole bunch of things here to look at. We've got that there, but this was cool, actually. I'll put a link to this in the description as well. This this panoramic. Let's go right round and see what we can see, if it will let me. There we are. There's not a lot to see, actually, apart from the blast radius here. The only things you can really see here are these objects. There's a rock there, and the the back shield or heat shield over here. And there's that rock. There's a few rocks in the foreground. So there isn't a lot to see here. We've got these light patches. Now, a lot of these light patches are dunes. And there are some very weird dunes here. And I'm going to show you some of those now. And there's some weird features. Now, I think the reason it landed here is because if you go just due north of this landing spot, this LZ, landing zone, we have a very strange crater type thing here. Just here, with a square part in it, a completely square, rounded corners. It's got a square kind of structure in it, right? So what the hell is that all about? Is this the real reason they landed there? You can see there's like a wall coming down here. You've got these weird dunes just here, which are very strange, some of these dunes. I'll show you some more on them in a minute. We've got this kind of wall coming down here, and there's a part coming round here, then up here, and it sort of joins like that. That is an almost perfectly square crater. Now, is there such thing as square craters? Now, this looks like a crater with a square crater on the side of it. Now, is that even possible? I don't think it is. I don't even think it is. I think this is an actual structure that they're here to see. And all they have to do is drive the rover up here. Now, how far away is that? It's probably about half a mile or so, not even that, quarter of a mile away. All they'd have to do is drive Zhurong up here, due north, straight to this target. Now, they may choose to drill for water deposits or do some sampling around here, or at least that's what they'll claim. But this may be the real reason they're here, because if they drive the thing over this, they'll be able to use the ground penetrating radar, which there are 3 of on the rover, and they'll be able to get an underground map of what's going on here, okay? This is kind of what the other rover in Jezero crater is doing. It's also got ground penetrating radar, and as I have shown, it's driving over all these structures and buried ruins in a sort of scanning pattern, and scanning underground. Now, we haven't seen any of this data yet, any of the underground data. Well, none of it's been published as far as I know, so we don't know what they've found. In Jezero crater with the Ingenuity helicopter and the Perseverance rover. So what's going on there? So that was weird. So I'll take some clips of this for you and show you that again. What I'll do is I'll rotate it a bit as well, and then that will look even more square. But you can see that that's a square, and these dunes are partly obscuring this corner of it here. But you can see that, and there's some kind of weird structure inside it as well, just there. Very strange. So I'll take some clips of that and put them in a minute for you. Very strange indeed. What is going on here? There are some other weird features. I mean, there's loads of these little dunes here. Now, most of them look natural, but some of them look really odd. This one here was very strange, and I've marked it for you. This one here. Is that a dune? What the hell is that? It's got these weird parts to it. On top and below, like a row of parts. Now, this looks like a dune, right? This one here. Looks like a dune, right? There's nothing that unusual about it, really. But this one looks like something else, and some of them really do look very strange indeed. So I think there's some stuff going on here that we don't quite understand. And we need to keep an eye on this, because we should get some more images of this area, obviously from the ground. But really the overhead shots from the HiRISE are more of a giveaway here, because some of these dune structures are very strange, and they don't make a lot of sense as normal dunes. And some of them do, obviously, and there's some really nice ones down here in this this crater. Now this is another crater with an internal crater part to it, as if it's been like a double strike. So we had a larger impact followed by one or two smaller impacts here, which have hit the same spot. Now this looks more natural in shape. It's not square like that other one I just showed you, just north of the rover, the Zhurong rover. This one is more natural, although it's almost square, but nothing really unusual. But there's a lot of detail in these dunes here. Now these are normal dunes, okay? You can see they're normal dunes. They look like sand. They've got these ridges, and they sort of overlap slightly in places. They sort of go up to each other, but they don't go over and under each other. They just kind of, you know, form in natural formations, right? But some of these dunes look really odd. They actually look artificial, and they've got sort of odd parts on them. So I wonder what's going on here. I wonder if some of these are actually structures that are buried in sand, and that's why they're these funny shapes. There's another kind of weird sort of structure inside this crater here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it's a pentagonal one. Something nice going on there. That may be natural, but it looks cool. So I wonder if there's something else going on here, and this is the real reason they're here. They may be scanning for some of these underground buried ruins and structures in the ground. I'll put some links to all this. Check out this this panoramic thing here. You can't zoom in very far, and there's not a lot to see on the ground. There's no close-ups of any of it, but it's pretty cool anyway. It just gives you a sense of scale, and lets you look at things. You can look at stuff on the ground, but there's not a lot of detail, like I said. Let's have a look at that rock there, see if there's anything on that. Is there anything on there? That's kind of interesting. We'd like to see a close-up of that, but we can't really get close to it. There was this one showing the actual Tianwen lander here. This is really nice, this image. I think this is made up of 2 or 3 smaller pictures stitched together, and this is actually pretty good, and you can see it quite clearly. The detail's quite good, and you can see the flag there, and the ramp coming down and all the parts on it here, and you can see the tracks that the rover's left there, but there's not a lot to see in the background. Everything's sort of way off in the distance. We got these sort of got this kind of mound or hill in the background there, but you can just about make out another mound here and a ridge there, but there's not a lot of detail here, and you can clearly see where the blast radius is here as well. And if you look underneath, it's hollowed out just here, where the rockets have blown the material away and left a hole in the ground, just like the other landers we've seen. Okay, so that's perfectly consistent. So interesting, but this one was weird because this image looked almost fake. Not because it's fake, but because it's low res. And when you zoom in, it almost looks like it's been made up of sort of some kind of animated image or something. It's very strange, but that's a factor of the low resolution. Let's flip it to negative. There it is. How weird is that? Very strange. Absolutely crazy. But it's quite a cute little rover, this one.